those songs we know. But baby, you know all of that glitter ain't gold. Salt on your face again, and the look you get with him. But you don't remember the love I can't forget. I want you, I need you, I love you, I can't let you go. I want you, I need you, I love you, I won't let you go. I want you, I need you, I love you, I won't let you go. Hiding in your place of sin, lose yourself as you spin upside down all around, and we'll do it again. Sell it off for just a 10. Will you still love me then? Everything about us will come to a fortune end. I want
Good evening and welcome to Goddesses and Devils with your host Amanda Mcmanus and Katie Kamara. Joining us tonight are going to be our other co-host Christopher Wayne Fisher. So tonight's very special, and just like always and every night, there is a zero tolerance for any negative, rude, or obscene comments in our comment section. So please make sure if you have anything negative to say, just take that elsewhere because we don't tolerate that here on this show. But anyway, out of the negative into the positive, right? So tonight's very special. I actually have somebody that I've been following for quite some time now who has changed a lot of people's, I would say, views on music in itself. To me, he is a very, very good artist. And, music itself is very uplifting, right? So in a time of need, he offers that through his music. So I would like to welcome Jason. In a few seconds, you'll get to hear a little bit from Jason about his what he does, his work, how he's definitely using music to pave the way for the new age things that we you always lose track of that old time soul, right? And to me, Jason has all of that with him, where he carries that soul with him. And so I would like to introduce Jason. Hi, Jason.
Hey, how you doing?
How are you? So
Good.
if you would like, would you tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and what you do and how music has inspired you as well as it does so many out there?
Um, my name is Jason Gisser, and I've been a musician since I was about 9 years old. Played my first gig at 17. I play all the woodwinds except for double reeds. I play bass. I play electric guitar or acoustic guitar, electric, all the guitars, and some keys and some percussion. Um, I've been an engineer. I've produced albums, and currently I'm still playing in the Jason Gisser band, still doing a lot of solo stuff. I recently built a radio station where we only play original independent artists, and I first started playing music because I suffer from depression. So for me, um, that was my outlet for my whole life. And when you're going through a bad bout of depression, I'd rather sit down and write a song about it. So a lot of my music kind of goes in that sort of direction. It's got to be about the feel. I feel like today they kind of threw that away. They kind of it gets all washed out in the ease of a recording studio, of a digital recording studio. You know, back when 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe like to the mid 90s. In the mid 90s, there was still a lot of analog studios. And bands had to know their music when they went into the studio, and then they killed it. They went and did the whole thing live, recorded it, and there was a feel to it because the artist felt the other musicians while they were doing it. You can ask any studio engineer when you bring a full band in and they record everything live the first time, you feel it more on the album. When they come in and they do it piece by piece, let the drums come in first, lay down his tracks, and then the bass player comes in and lays down. It takes a little out of that. It takes a little away from the feel of everything. Sometimes you want to hear the drums, and sometimes you want to hear the bass. Sometimes you want to hear the keys. Sometimes you want to hear the vocals. Sometimes you hear the guitar. So when you're playing it, when you're playing the instrument on that recording, and it's all happening at the same time, you feel it the way you want to feel it. I love it. And music has saved my life over and over and over again. And I'm sure it's saved everybody's at some point.
Well, yeah, even with me growing up, my dad had a band. It was called The Night, and they did a lot of older music, and they composed a lot of their own music as well. But growing up in a household where music literally just went through the walls, all the way through the ceilings, like you could just feel it through the whole house. It actually really has a way of settling somebody when they are in some sort of um, incident in their life that creates chaos. So like with me, I when I was younger, I had so much anger. Like I literally had such problems with controlling my anger. I was mean, I was aggressive, that was just who I was as an individual. And yeah, I remember I used to listen to Cold, and you know and the song Bleed, in a sense, where he kept saying he needs music. And that's really what it really comes down to, is that when we have music in play, it has a way of uplifting people, touching them. It has a way of bringing people together. It's literally a light in a dark place. And so I definitely feel that as well. Like me, I love the drums. I love um when I used to, like I said, growing up, when I used to play, my dad taught me the organ, he taught me the bass, he taught me electric guitar, like different instruments. And you know that literally took a lot of that frustration and anger out of me because it did something positive for me. And that's what we see also in today's world, is that we don't see a lot of that actually occurring, where we are taking troubled youths or individuals who have issues with dealing with whatever it may be, their anger, their emotions, whatever it is. We don't really see an outlet for them anymore. We don't see any programs out there. And music is only accessible through schools, and even then they're trying to get rid of music.
Right.
And it really has a positive impact on individuals, and the arts in general do. Even if you're painting, anything that allows you to be self-expressive towards towards whatever's going on in your life, and then reflecting that into a piece of work really is therapeutic in its own way. So I really appreciate you for doing that and continuing that, and bringing that to people who, like yourself and myself, has run into situations in their life where music actually has healed them and allowed them to continue on. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I do it for me just as much as I do it for other people. It's we were doing a show at this club, Daryl's House, and there's a song that we do called All of You, and I wrote it when I was 13, and it's I was going through a really bad bout of depression, and I kind of thought, like, this is it, I'm done. And instead of killing myself, I wrote the song All of You. And then years later, we had moved up to Dutchess, and I had this big box of tapes of stuff that I recorded when I was younger, and I found that song. So the band, we re-recorded it, and then we played it at Daryl's house. And I saw this woman get up and walk out of the room, and we were all kind of like in the middle of playing, like, oh man, does not sound good. We're like, this is Daryl's house, it's got to sound good. I don't know if you know what Daryl's house is, but so when we were done, we were in the green room, and she came back and she gave us all hugs. She had tears running down her face. She told us that she suffered from depression, and she was listening to the song, and it overwhelmed her, and she started crying at the table. So she, all her friends were there, so she got up and she walked out of the place so she could compose herself. But we thought she was leaving because she didn't like the music. It was so funny, but yeah. So it touches people. You can talk to someone, and that's great. And it builds relationships and stuff. When you can make somebody feel something, that's so huge. It's just, to me, it's amazing. And if you don't feel it when you're playing it, when you're writing or recording it, you can't expect somebody to feel it when they're listening to it. It's got to all be there. You got to be in it. There's this one recording studio that we record at, Karma Studios East, and he's such a great engineer. And when you walk in, you ever hear the band Rival Sons?
Are they like a indies band? I don't
They're
think so.
they're rock, but
They're rock.
yeah, they're rock. They're rock. That's the best way I can describe them. But so he recorded them, and when you go into his studio, like a lot of studios, you'll go in and they're like, all right, get ready, sit down, play. But you had a whole day. You know what I mean? You could have had a hard day at work. You could have, had bill issues or whatever the case, and it's all in your head. And when you walk in the studio, there's no way you're going to get a good recording. But with Michael, he'll sit down and talk to you for like a half an hour, and he's just like, listen, tell me what the song's about. How are you feeling when the song, to go further back from the song, like what led up to it. He puts you back in that place you were when you wrote it, so you get the best recording. And those are the ones that people can feel the most in my book. Like it's got depth, and they can kind of swim in the song. You know what I mean? And all you're doing is really bleeding your soul into some sonic tones. I love it.
No, I love it too. And like I said, when even now as an adult, as I listen to music, the our intro and was composed by well, Katie actually what she did was she took a bunch of my favorite songs and she created this intro for us. And so one of the bands that I follow are In This Moment. I don't know if you heard of them. It's a female vocalist. It's a rock band, heavy metal. Um, and a lot of those songs, believe it or not, are similar to the way you're expressing. You know, like she was a woman who was looked down upon because she is a woman. You know, she was expected not to turn out to be much of anything. She was looked down on because she was blonde. You know, she had boobs, the whole nine in a sense. Um, but see, that's what people don't understand is that when artists do compose their songs, a lot of it is their life experience, a lot of it is their emotional experience, but it also speaks to those out there who had similar experiences. You know, like I said, with In This Moment, there's a song that it's called Whore, believe it or not, and so it's pretty much is like, well, you know, a girl who is non-promiscuous but has you know, people looking at her is considered a whore just because she wants to dress a certain way and wear certain clothing. But they really never get a chance to actually speak to the girl. So all of a sudden now she's dubbed a whore because of the way she looks. And that's what she sings about. And it's like, you know, well, it's funny because when you like me, I'm not a whore, but other than that, I'm a whore. So I guess I could be your whore then. You know what I mean? So she takes the power out of labels and she turns it into something else. So literally she's taking that power out of it and showing everybody it's just a word, but it's not you. It doesn't defy you. And so that's what's so important about music is that when you can take, especially with your work, because like I said, I do follow your work as well. um you know, when you take this emotion, these thoughts, these feelings, there's so many people you actually reach out to and it connects with them because they're going through something, and a lot of times it could be a godsend, you know what I mean, where one day you're walking down the street and this song pops up into your head and you're just, or you're hearing it as you're passing by a car, and there's certain words that you catch. It's like you know, with John Lennon, in a sense, he has that effect on people. Imagine all the people with the song Imagine. You know, when you hear certain songs, it turns people's mind and it switches them to like, wait a minute, I can relate to this. I could feel this. This is how I'm feeling. Yes, somebody understands me out there. You know, so it's really, and it's also very entertaining as well. I mean, you can dance, you can have fun, you can sing along, but irregardless, it has so much more meaning. Um, and I know tonight, I've asked if you would like to do some live songs. And before you do them, can you explain the feelings that went into these songs and how you came up with them?
Yeah, sure. So, like I said before, a lot of my music is about depression. So, uh, I guess I'll do the one that I had just talked about. It's called All of You, and basically, I was 13 years old, and I was going through a really bad bout, and I was either going to end it or I was going to write a song. I wrote a song, and I remember being a kid and listening to it over and over again when I was going through it because I really liked it, and it kind of helped, like, and then we re-recorded it, and it was funny because when I heard it on the tape, I wrote it on piano, and when we recorded it, there's only like one keyboard part in it where I'm just playing like a Wurlitzer that we had. She was really neat because we recorded it at this place called Dreamland Studios, and Michael was our engineer, and he wanted a cool eerie sound, so we found this old beat up amp in the studio, and it, like, the front speaker was slit and had no name. It was tiny. It just made no sense. But Dreamland is a big church. It's like a big, well, gutted church. So it's a huge open room. So we took a microphone and we ran it from the Wurlitzer out into the church area with this little beat up amp. We put one microphone right in front of it and one far away, like on the other end of the church. And then we just recorded that keyboard part, and it came out really cool. But so the song is called All of You, and it's written in the perspective of me singing to the pallbearers, as they're carrying me up this hill. So. Wake me up when it's time to go home. I feel can't take it no more. Look me up when you grow again. For you all, I'll see my way. The belief in religion says it's okay now. Do you free? This is my goodbye. Ooh, yeah, carry me all across the hill. Though I'm dry from the rain, oh, your teeth so misty. Can't you see? Oh, what I tried to do. Oh, I tried to keep all my love to you. Oh, yes, I did. Oh, yes, I did. Oh, yes, I did. I tried to keep, oh, my love to you. Ooh. Oh, my love, oh, my love to you.
Wow, I think that was awesome. Like I really liked it. I could feel the feelings, I could feel the soul in it. And like I said, we say soul because that is like the core of the emotions that people feel. It's a deep feeling that comes out within the expression of this music. So that's why we say soul, just so you guys know, out there. Um, and I could definitely feel it. And the words
Song.
itself, yeah, it's a great song. And the words itself really have a lot of meaning to it. It catches you. You know what I mean? And it draws you in. So I can understand because that does bring up emotions in me too. Knowing the history behind the song itself, it it allows you to contextualize with it and see like this is so much raw emotions going into this song, the feelings, the hurt, the confusion, the just not feeling like you belong anymore is so deep rooted in that song. And yeah, I could see why that woman felt the way she did. You know what I mean? And you know for you to be able to sing it is even more be powerful in itself because you're taking all of that in you and you're sharing it with us. And there's so much power behind it. It's like I'm surprised that do you ever get like choked up when you're doing your own songs because you rehash the memories?
There's one that I do after my mom had passed away. My grandmother passed away shortly after that. So I'd written a song called "The River," and it was kind of a conversation between my dad on earth and my mom in heaven, and then my grandfather on earth, my grandmother in heaven. And I remember the first time I played it, it was emotional, but I kept my composure. I was cool, I stayed cool on it. And then there was I think it was the 1 year anniversary of her passing, and I was playing at a music festival, and I don't remember which one it was. And we were on stage, and this guy Joe North, he's a saxophone player. We were playing, and he just came up and did the solo for it. And there's no saxophone solo in it, but he just felt it, and he came up, and I lost it. I was like bawling, and a friend of mine was in the audience, and she was crying, and I'm seeing all these people crying. I'm like, oh, maybe this was a bad thing to do at a music festival, but it was, yeah, that one kind of got to me, because it was like it was a year, and it just kind of felt like, and it was an outdoor festival, so it felt like she was there. You know what I mean? It was just, yeah, it was emotional. So yeah, that would probably be the one time. Like, we've done shows with, big bands and like national acts and stuff, and that never really gets to me. But it's the personal stuff that gets, that's the stuff that gets to me. I guess it depends on why you do music. Like, I know guys that do music, they just want to be big and famous and this and that, and their stuff is very generic, and you put them on stage with some of the people, some of the bigger bands, and they just can't keep their composure. They just can't be themselves. They turn into this other person. And it's like, no, you got to be you first. You're writing this music for you. You didn't write it to get on stage with them. You know what I mean? You wrote it because you needed to get something out. Like, that's what it should be about. But that's just my opinion. I mean, that's why I do it. But, there's other people that do it for different reasons. But I don't, I tend to stick to the music where you can tell that somebody needed to get something out.
Well, see, and that's a thing. Like, a lot of times when people get this fame, they also develop this ego. And when they develop this ego, they do more harm than they do good. Because a lot of times I like to believe that people started out to help other people, depending on what industry you're in, whether you're actually an artist or a doctor, or even just, somebody who likes to go and help in church and things like that. You start out with somebody who genuinely wants to help and make a change in people and in the environment as well, we'll say, right? But then once fame rears its ugly head, they begin to develop this ego, and that ego really causes a lot of deterioration within themselves and within who they really are, and they're not authentic anymore. And when people are not authentic anymore, it really breaks those and severs those connections for you to understand them and to develop that interpersonal relationship with them. So when someone is looking for music to help them, they look for an interpersonal connection to where they can feel it, they can vibe with it, they can understand it. And that's even with every relationship, whether it's with music, whether, like I said, whether it's your occupation, whatever it is. Once you develop that and you lose sight of yourself, and you allow your mind to just, I'm rich, I'm famous, I'm better than this person, it really does take away from your skills. It takes away from you, and it takes that humanity within you that everybody fell in love with, and it just like obliterated it, and
Yeah.
it just goes. And so I agree with that. I think that people should remain humble no matter where they are in life. um yeah, people go on a small ego trip, fine, it's okay, everybody goes through it. It's the process of being excited and happy and like, wow, I did this, this is me, they're here because I did this is awesome. You know what I mean? But really, then you question yourself, well, why am I here? Why do I do this?
Right.
And a lot of times people don't even care to remind themselves anymore. They're just like, well, they're going to come here because I'm me and I'm famous and I'm rich and I'm this and I'm powerful. And it's like, to me, I don't like people like that. So it really makes me turn my face towards them. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm not for you. I want authenticity. I want humanity. I want to see a person who is authentic to themselves and able to express themselves in a way that is true to themselves. Like I said, authenticity is like the key. And I think that's what that's what really intrigued me about you and your work, is that you're really authentic. And I noticed that, especially when you started playing at different venues, you would still be Jason. At the end of the day, yes, you're the musician, but you're still you, and you're happy being you. And I really found that really inspiring, because people, just with social media alone, people try too hard to be somebody that they're not.
Right.
And that's when a lot of these emotions develop, because they feel left out, they feel alone, they feel like they can't fit in anywhere, because they can't find themselves, because they lost themselves in trying to be someone else. So
Right.
I think that's amazing that you promote that, and you're like, well, this is who I am, and it is what it is, and this is what you get.
Yeah. I mean, look, if you can't do it for yourself, why are you doing it? I mean, if do something you love, do something you love for yourself. You know, you're going to spend your life doing it, and it also has to do with longevity. I mean, if you're a musician and you're playing stuff you don't believe in, eventually people realize that,
Hmm.
and then they kind of lose that 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 love for you. You know what I mean? They lose, or not for you, but for your music. Because they're just like take Lenny Kravitz. He's like the perfect example. So his first few albums, he was going through his issues with Lisa Bonet, right? So he all his music was like such heartbreak and such, like you could feel everything in there. But then all of a sudden he got big and famous, and his music changed. It became like all about parties and women and drugs and this, and it was like, I could relate to the first part. I can't relate to the second part. Like, so I just didn't listen to him anymore. But when you're going through something, you can relate to his pain in the first one, and he kind of tells a story of your heart when you're going through something like that. But not the other stuff. I'm not a millionaire. I don't know how it is to be like that. You know what I mean? Maybe if I was, I'd be like, oh, that's right, man, getting on big planes with hot chicks, that's awesome. It's like, okay, that sounds great, but what does it do for your music? You know, are you
Exactly.
bleeding your soul by doing that? You're just collecting a paycheck. So
I
Right, and a lot of times that lifestyle is actually the downfall to their music, because with all the drugs and the partying and it really takes a toll on them physically. Even a lot of them had suffered from issues with their vocal cords because of it, because when they're constantly smoking or drinking, it was changing, the way that they were able to hit a tune, so then they could no longer hit that tune no more. And some of
right,
them were very important, like Axl Rose. He was in, he could hit the most like outlandish, I would say, tunes and tones, and it's just like he literally was like his own little like machine, I swear, with the things he could do, with his voice. He literally had such a unique voice. And then, when they took off, he began this lifestyle where it just really took a toll on him. Same thing with Korn. um Korn, they did really well, but then they went on these, not Jonathan Davis. Jonathan Davis did it, but his some of his bandmates did, and they had to take a step back because they were just so strung out that it was like they couldn't even focus no more on the music. And it's like we see that with a lot of the 80s bands, and now it just like started taking off from the 80s on, where their lifestyle choices really deeply impacted their careers as well as their abilities. So it's like you're right. Like I could relate to the first part of it, but the second part of it, I'm like, well, right now, if I was rich, the only thing I would think about doing is honestly, and this is like truth to God, the only thing I would honestly want to do with my money is pay off all my family's homes, make sure they have a nice lifestyle to where they can live comfortably in the homes that they're already in. I'm not buying nobody mansions. No.
right,
They keep their own homes. You know, and pay off my house and make sure my children have what they need to go to college, and then donate the rest of the money. And me and my kids, we do that anyway. We're not rich, but we do donate. And we donate to St. Jude's, we donate to different organizations, because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to help others. So I think that if that would be the case where I would become famous, I don't think I would ever change who I am, because of the fact that I literally know what struggle is. And when you know what real struggle is, you learn to appreciate everything you have, down to the tiniest thing, to a penny. We appreciate everything that we're given. And that's what it really is. It's like a humbling thing. And music has a way of humbling you if you allow it to.
Right.
Whereas other people, unfortunately, they just go off the other end of it, and it's just like you totally screw that up. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
I was just going to say that from my experience, a lot of people don't know this about me. I have mentioned a couple of times in a lifetime, but for me, when I was going through college, I had to figure out a way to get pay my bills, and one of the ways that I did creatively was to actually give vocal lessons to students that wanted it. So thus them then becoming a vocal coach. However, I don't do that anymore. I went throughout my whole entire high school doing advanced music studies and writing music, and a lot of, I mean, I am a full-time writer, and I do a lot of poetry, which can actually be adapted into lyrical poetry itself. But when I was 12 years old, I did write, and I'm going to read out the first verse, because I haven't, spoken about this for a very, very long time. But the first verse is, "My heart is like a river. My heart is like these hills. They never change. I never change, and I never will." So when you were talking about, Jason, about the heart, a lot of that creativity and a lot of that lyrical genius that comes behind it is from the heart. It's not necessarily from the head, because we're not thinking with our heads. As creative people, we think from our hearts, from our experience, from what we have, what our inner turmoil is, to be able to adapt that so that other people can understand the world around us, because a lot of people do not have that understanding, and it's that understanding and that compassion that drives us further to where we want to go. So by the time we get into our 60s, and who knows, Jason, you might still be a musician by then, or might be doing something else, who knows, but your musical taste and what you have in your lyrics will ultimately be altered, and instead of actually reflecting on what is currently going on within yourself right now, you could possibly be reflecting back on the experiences that you had, and in order to, and you might be talking more about encouragement rather than the state of being, so to help people rather than realize the emotional flow of what depression is like. By the time you get into your 60s, you might be saying, hey, depression may be a good thing, but this is who I am now. And it's representative as an artist to represent who you are. And that goes into what you said, Amanda, is about authenticity. Of course, everybody who knows me, I write a hell of a lot about empowerment and authenticity, but with the lyrics that I wrote at the age of 12, 13, I was almost 13, that I didn't even have any of the life experiences, and yet I focused my experience as my heart, and I represented it in the hills that are ever flowing, the hills that are ever changing. Well, ever changing could be up and down. It's just like climbing a mountain. So, yeah, Jason, I can relate to you completely.
Yeah, it's an interesting, like, if you can imagine, let's say, love to hate, from end to end as being a landscape. The heart, it doesn't matter what age you are. It matters how big that landscape is, like how much is between that love and that hate. So it's, when you think about it, you could be a 12 or 13-year-old. If you felt that much pain, then that's the amount of pain that somebody that could be 100 may have never felt. So it doesn't have to do with your age. It has to do with how big your soul landscape is, if you will. like how much from pain to joy, how big that distance is, because there's some people that just don't feel anything. They're just cold, or maybe they're just really good at faking it, but they kind of keep that landscape really small. Like, they don't really feel too much pain, and they don't really feel too much joy. I guess it depends on where you're sitting there. you know
Yeah, and it's a matter of a perception. And see, when I looked at those hills, I saw more than what the naked eye would see. So going beyond perception, and that is where creativity starts to lie. When we just see, I see a chair with four legs. Well, what is it about that chair? That what is it? Does that chair have emotion? Does that chair change? Does that chair break down? Does that chair become old? Does that chair become influenced? Does that chair get sat on? So, we're describing a whole heap of things here, and the majority of people out there are influenced by many things as well. And so, music provides that creativity that enhances one's perception.
Oh yeah, I think sitting in that chair would definitely influence it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using that as an example
I
because,
know this.
I'm all about empowerment. But the thing is that there's a lot of people out there that cannot show vulnerability, and the only way to show vulnerability, to have that quote unquote relation, is to music and through the lyrics that is conveyed. I see you go up onto YouTube now, and you've got all of these compositions for sci-fi. Those long compositions that last about instrumentals that last about 15 minutes before the end of it, but it goes
Right.
through the whole motion of telling a story without any lyrics whatsoever, and it goes into these big epic crescendos and then drops down into, okay, now we're all at peace, and then all of a sudden war breaks out, and bang, there it goes again. And so
Yeah.
that is how life really is. It goes up and down, just like I mentioned about the hills. So
Right.
there you go.
Well, yeah, and Disney actually captured that type of feeling in their and the emotion of life through Fantasia. That's what Fantasia was. It was an orchestrated piece where they only used the sounds of music, and so when they had this whimsical type of setting, it was this more woodwind effect. But what it did was it actually took you through the percussions, the basses, the woodwind, and it took you through all that. And what it did was it allowed you to experience music through your imagination, but they also put a picture to it. So now you can relate to the picture they were shown, but now you could still become a part of that picture by feeling those instruments, by feeling the music, by allowing your imagination to, um, captivate you through the composition of this piece. And it had the melody, the harmony, it had the pitch, it had, like you were saying, it had this big, like, war type of theme to it, where you have the horns going off and things like that. And so it really is really interesting on um how many musical instruments we have that can capture the the feelings of somebody, and how we relate to those feelings. Like with the drums, with the drums, we think of them as more of like going to war, when drumming can be really soothing. There's a lot of cultures out there that use drums, that use other instruments, and it's a cultural aspect as well in a human society, that we use music to connect to. And a lot of times, many cultures practice festivals and events and things like this where they have only music playing, and the idea is to relate to that music and to that culture. And each culture has their own way of using these instruments and these tools to produce their thoughts and their feelings and their emotions on their culture. So really, music goes into it just so much more deeper than what we allow ourselves to see, because a lot of times we're just like, oh, I like this song, I could sing along to it, it's got a nice beat, I can dance to it.
Well,
Right.
here's
But
it.
we miss the fact that it's really entwined in our culture. We miss the fact that it's a way to describe things. We miss the fact that it has a way of healing things. And sometimes people who are not musically inclined, they miss out on those really important things because they're just so caught up in the melody. But when they're caught up in that melody, what happens is a lot of them, they get triggered emotionally, where they feel happiness, where they want to dance, or where they cry because they're feeling the sadness behind it. They're feeling just all coddled because they're feeling the love in it. You know what I mean? And that's what music does. Um and with your particular style of music, it's like, with you, when I hear your music, it's like you can take a piece and turn it into um any different way you want. Like if you wanted to take your work and put it into a rap, let's say, or if you want to take your work and put it towards a rock, or you want to, whatever it is, you're able to take your music based on your emotions and then project it through these tools, which are the instruments, to create it. And with you, you have this very classic rock, but it's just like this blues and this soul. It's like you're really, you like you yourself really incorporate a lot of this into your work, which is really amazing because many people just stay in one genre. And with you, you're able to kind of, you know, combine them, which is really interesting. And it reminds me, like I told you before, when we had a conversation recently, it reminds me of my dad's music. He has, he's played cover music as well as his own music, and he's able to take it, whether he's using a guitar, a piano, just drums, or saxophone, a harmonica, whatever he's using, a tambourine even, and he's able to create this rhythm and this feeling, but he's able to project it through his voice into these lyrics, into where it all just combines into this one piece. And that's what I see with you when you do it. It's like you're able, no matter whatever you're shooting for, you're able to do it, and you use the instruments as the tools to project that, which is really amazing. Because like I said, a lot of artists, they really just stick in like their own little genres. They kind of really don't shift out of it.
Right.
And I think a lot of it is the fear of not being liked or rejected.
Right.
And then that's why you lose that authenticity, because why should you care? The point is doing what you love, that it's being truthful to you. And you got to remember, some people will like it, other people won't, but it's just the way it is. And everybody's not going to like it.
It's funny. It's a really good point, because like I was just thinking of somebody that Michael Jackson, so his song Billie Jean. So when that song comes on, everyone's like, oh yeah, Billie Jean, they all start dancing, right?
Yeah.
But when you listen to the words, it's a really messed up song. Like, it's a really messed up song. And it begs the question, did he write the lyrics and have the music, was it originally different? And then the producer basically just said, hey, look, we're going to put this groove behind it because people will dance to that. But he didn't listen to the words to get an idea of what it was like. And then Chris Cornell redid it, and he did it really slow. And like, how Chris Cornell sings, like, so much soul and power and stuff. And it was just like, I mean, I don't know if you ever heard him do it, but it was like, she was more like a beauty queen. I said, don't mind, what do you mean? I am the one. Like, really slow, and it had so much feel. And you listen to the words for the first time, and you're like, oh my God, that's about some chick that went up to a dude and was like, hey, by the way, this kid is yours.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
like, what are you talking about? But you don't even think about it, because the music's so poppy and happy and stuff, that you're just kind of like, oh, it's a good dance song, You're like,
Yeah.
we had a song called Manthem that was like that, and it was I had gotten out of a bad relationship, and the song was kind of about why I was going out with some friends to go have a few beers and stuff, and when we were getting ready to go, I had forgotten my wallet, and I went back into the house to get it, and I walked past my guitar, and it was like perfectly in tune, and my pant leg brushed against it, and I was like, oh, and I picked it up, and I started to write the song. And the song is basically, it's why beer is better than women. I wrote it. I was a bad breakup, right? So then I was like, but it had such an upbeat kind of poppy thing that whenever we would play it, women would come out and dance, and it was always this thing. And we had these girls that would come to rehearsal, and every time we'd play it, they would dance. And one day we were like, do you guys even know what that song's about? And they were like, no. So we played it really slow, and we sang the same lyrics, and they were like, you guys are jerks, They didn't listen to us anymore. Oh, it was great. But yeah, it just goes to show you, sometimes they just listen to the music. Sometimes, if the groove is upbeat and poppy and stuff like that, you tend to listen to the groove more than the lyrics. But if you're writing a song, you should try to have the music match the feel of the song that you're trying to do, so that people can actually feel what it is, as opposed to not really listen to it. You know what
Right,
I mean?
right. No, I totally agree because like it's funny. Like my husband makes fun of me because I'll sit here and watch a movie with him. We'll say right, just or listen to a song, whatever it may be. But I do it so intently that I catch every mistake or I catch every mess up. I'm like, look, did you see that? They messed up there. Look, they weren't supposed to do that. But then now he's wearing a necklace and he wasn't wearing a necklace in the scene before that. And my husband's like, babe, you just can't watch the movie or you can't just listen to the music. I'm like, no, because there's so much more to it. They're trying to tell a story. And a lot of times they mess up their own story because they're trying to put on this theatrical aspect of it to where you actually lose sight of what you're trying to say. And it's like, same thing with Billie Jean. Like I recognized it the minute I heard it, where I was like, "Oh, this is a messed up song." You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like he's like, "Okay," so he's like, "Yeah, I'm not the father, but yeah, you did sleep with her, and you're admitting you slept with her." But it's like, no, 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 it's not my kid. Well, what do you think is produced by sex? Offspring. You know what I mean? And same thing with Dirty Diana. I love that song, and I think The Weeknd did a really good rendition of it when he did do it. And many other people before him that tried to do it, I don't think they captured it the way The Weeknd did. And and so I was listening to it and I was like, damn, they're talking about a girl who was like literally a promiscuous person who was considered almost like a slut in that sense. And you know that's kind of messed up that they made a whole song. And I wonder if there is really a Diane out there that they based it on. You know what I mean? It really makes you think, like, who is this about? Because a lot of times artists gain their inspirations from anything from just sitting in a coffee shop to a person they interacted with, whatever it may be. And it's like it's like one of those things, and it's like, I wonder what people would think about me if they could. You know what I mean? It really brings up that question. But I'm also a really in depth thinker. Like I really am, like in I really it could be a positive thing or it could be a negative thing because I think too much into something, but it allows me to see things from multiple perspectives. And that's what we don't understand. A lot of times we just see it in like a tunnel vision, and we never really take the chance to actually see it further for what it is. And I think there's a beauty in seeing things so much more deeply. And when you connect that with anything, whether it be with art or music, it's like it brings all that out. It's kind of like what Fantasia did with all the colors they use and
Right.
the vibrancy, and then the songs and the music, and
The
it's just
dynamic.
like, yeah, and it makes it all the difference. So I understand why a lot of artists put on this theatrics behind their shows and all this stuff, but sometimes you kind of like lose it. Like like when I watched the show Britney Spears did, I'm just like, here she is as this schoolgirl, hit me baby one more time, and I'm just like, I don't understand this. You know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? I don't get
Wow.
it. You know what I mean? And that's just the thinker I am. So it's actually, I really like the fact that you think about this too as you're going forward. Like, how can I make this more of a meaning to somebody by my words, by the music, by the chords that I'm hitting? Because a lot of times we have our own chords. So when we're listening to this music, it strikes our chords emotionally.
Right.
You know, so another song that I heard recently, and I can't remember the name. It's just like escaping me. But you had this song, was a really like had like a real rock beat to it, but it was just um, so much emotion in it. You did it recently and you shared it not too long ago on your Facebook wall. I can't remember it, but that one, when I heard it, I was like, wow, I could really relate to this one. I really like this one, and I'm not, and I like I said, sometimes when I get on these shows, my brain just goes dead. I'm gonna be honest with you. Katie can tell you, I just
That's
like
why you have
just
me.
goes out the
Yeah,
window
yeah, yeah.
sometimes because I get so wrapped up in my show.
Right.
But one of the songs, like I said, you did, that's, to me, it's like I felt all those markers were being hit when you did it, and I was just like, wow. And I remember showing my kids, I was like, look, I was like, look, this is somebody I know. Look what he's doing. It's amazing. And they're like, oh yeah, I like that. And so like I went around to my house showing everybody in my house. And they're like, yeah, I like that. I was like, well, can you tell me what you like about it? Like, do you like the music or do you like the words? Like, and it's really interesting, like I said, and that's what amazes me about you, is that you can capture that just by the way that you're singing and the way that you're using the instruments that you're using. And I know that a lot of times when you do solo work, you know you use all different types of equipment to help you, but you're able to create your own beats, and you're able to put all that together, and you're able to execute the song. And it's like, people don't understand that there could be, you know, is there ever a time where in a sense where you're like you're doing a show and then it's like I didn't want to hit that chord but I did it but I'm gonna roll with it type of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, all the time, all the time. I was doing one. All right, so when I play solo shows, I have this big pedal board, and I have loopers on there, and I have tons of different effects and stuff. And so the looper that I use, you hit it once and it records, and then you hit it again and it'll play back. And then if you hit it again, it'll record over what you just did. So it'll keep looping it. You can just keep building a song. So I'll do the, I was playing in Jersey and I did the guitar part. And then I have a pedal to drop the guitar an octave. So it sounds like a bass. So then I laid down the bass line. And then I started like raking the strings to get like a groove, and then I started playing the front of it like a percussion like a percussive instrument. And when I went back in, I don't I just must have lost focus for a second. I came in off key, and I just kind of slid out of it real quick, but it was recording, so it kept looping back to the mistake. And so I recorded over that the other three notes to change the chord of it. And it kind of worked. And I was just like, wow. And there was a guy there that was a musician. He was like, yeah, what chord did you use on that? It seemed like it was like 8 notes in that chord. I was like, it was a mistake. It was just really bad. And he was like, well, it sounded good. And I was like, all right, I'll leave it. But yeah, I think the song you might be talking about that was on the wall. Was I playing piano on it?
I think I think it was that you I think you were playing piano actually on that one.
Yeah, it might have been the one about our governor. When they did the lockdowns and everything like that, I had to cancel a little over 200 gigs, and I got so frustrated because he just wasn't opening anything back up, and I hadn't been working, and I saw all these musician friends of mine and all these bar owner friends of mine just no work, losing like friends losing their bars and musicians just giving up on playing music and going to get day jobs somewhere, and it bothered me because everything that came out of our governor's mouth was about like shutting music down, and or at least it came back to shutting music down, and I just had enough. And I was downstairs and in the studio, and I think I was going to go on air for the radio station, and the keyboard was right there. So I was like, you know what? I wonder if I could write this and then get a bunch of musicians to record it with a ton of different instruments, and then we'll make a video, and in the video we'll put all these places, all these venues and all these bars that closed down,
Wow.
and all these musicians that are out of work basically would be on it, and just like, hey, look, we're the people that you're hurting, and you're playing politics. Like, it shouldn't be like that. It should just be, people need it. Live streaming is okay, I guess, but I can't do it all the time. It's weird. You're singing to your phone. You can't see anybody's faces. There's no audience reaction. It's just,
Yeah,
it
I
should
do that
not
often.
be.
I'm not even gonna lie. I do that often. Like I like when I'm sitting here cooking and stuff like that, like I'll put on my thing and I'll just be singing around the house and my husband, he'll come out of nowhere and he'll try to be smart or slick and try to record me or do something and I'm just stop and I'm just like, no. You know what I mean? Yeah, and it's like and that's what it is. It's like, people don't understand how everything that happens impacts everybody. You know what I mean? And we're not looking to that. You know what I mean? We just look at the self aspect of it of how is this affecting me? Well, no, there's a bigger world out there. You're just a part of it. And we got to look at like our actions, our feelings, um what we say, what we do, how we go through our life, the dispositions we use when we're going through our life, all that impacts others around us, whether we think it's impacting them or not. It does, and it's so much more out there than just a me thing. It's a everybody thing,
Well,
and
let me bring up something. You guys may not have heard of this movie, only because it is Australian, and of course it came out in 2004. Of course, being that I'm Australian, it's more well known to me than the American population. Put it that way. I'm not so much I don't know about the rest of the world, but I'm just going to go with it. But what you just said, Amanda, this movie, and I suggest for people to actually look it up because it is a really good movie, but it explains everything that you're trying to describe. So I'm just going to read you the plot here. Tommy is a Melbourne boy studying at the Royal Academy of Music in London. He is a violinist and a composer who hears music in unusual sources such as ambient noises of train in the London Underground or chirping of crickets. He is a rebel against the traditions of classical music and displays this by bringing home a homeless woman living in the underground on stage for a concert. A sympathetic professor decides that he is the type of innovative artist that needed to revive a dying opera art form. Having shocked opera's establishment, he returns back home on the death of his younger sister Emma, who suffers from a fatal overdose after experimenting with drugs at a rave dance party. And so this is where you have the fusion of music, just taking everyday sounds and amplifying them to change the frequency to make it an actual opera. And it's that emotion that we have, in grievance and those things, just for him picking out a woman who is literally just umming and erring, going, when you see a homeless person and they're rocking back and forth and they're going, and they're making sounds and we just don't understand what they're saying. He turned that all into music. And of course, that's the collaboration that comes with the creativity. And of course, it can come from anywhere. But I suggest for people to go look up that movie because it does explain a lot what you guys are actually talking about right now. And the fact that we are influenced by so many different avenues of emotion and creativity. It's called, by the way, the movie's called One Perfect Day.
I was just gonna say, well,
what's
Katie, it'd
that
be nice
movie?
if you said what the movie's name was.
The same thing.
Yeah, sorry. I'll put it up. I'll put it up in the chat.
Oh, she's not going to tell us. We have to figure it out.
Yeah, no,
This is a
no,
secret,
because
isn't
you
it?
got to remember back
Damn
in
you, Netflix.
you remember back in, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because back in the early 2000s, I'm not sure about so much about the America, but being that I grew up in Australia, was born there, we had a lot of that was the time going in from the 90s to the 2000s. That's when we were having the big rave culture, the drug addictions, the who went to the club to go take drugs and get high on that, to go have a rave, go to a good rave party. Well, I know that culture was prominent in Australia, and of course, then it went into harder methamphetamines and all sorts of other stuff. But it does show that when people go down that route, you tend to see a hell of a lot more. And when you get to that OD, or seeing someone OD or die because of that, your perception tends to change. And given the fact that it's the whole, going back to what I was saying before, it's fusion. You're fusing these everyday sounds and just making them an art form. I mean, hell, I can go grab a damn water bottle right now and smack it over my head, and what do you know? I got a sound, and lo and behold, I might have a song.
You never know until you try. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's kind of like watching The Sound of Music, going do re mi fa sol la ti, whatever it is.
Honestly, I couldn't stand that. I couldn't stand that. I couldn't stand the Sound of Music, and just so everybody knows, I cannot stand the musical Annie. I can't stand it. It's just I can't do it. I remember, it's real quick, and then I would like for Jason if he could play another song for us. Real quick about the musical Annie, it really has a lot of music involved, and it takes you through this, this little girl's life of being an orphan, and then she gets, this newfounded future through Daddy Warbucks. I get the whole idea of I can't stand the songs. That's what it really comes down to. And I refuse to listen to it and watch it. Don't you know, I think my daughter did it on purpose. I swear she did. My daughter got one of the leading roles in the play Annie, and I had to go sit there and watch it, and I was just so livid. But I didn't want her to curb her her wanting to participate in this play because I just didn't like the music or anything. So I mean, I was a jerk. I did bring headphones. So like for the songs I really, really couldn't stand, I I threw out my headphones. I still watched her. And that's what it's, and that's what it is too. Music allows you to come out of your comfort zone, but it also allows you to know what your comfort zone is. So it's kind of like, either which way we look at it, music has been involved in our culture and our cultural upbringing and the development of our culture for so many years, for, just from the dawn of time, them banging sticks together, rocks together, them carving out woodwinds through using specific plants and trees and things like that, making strings out of vines and stuff like that.
Hell, don't
They,
you remember?
this,
Don't you remember we used to
yeah,
put string together with two cups and try and speak to each other?
Yeah, the telephone game. The telephone.
I
yeah,
even made
The
a
original
musical
cell phone.
instrument from stretching out a coat hanger and hitting it against a metal shoe rack.
yeah. But you see, we that's the thing we make, and that's something we do growing up as children. We bang things together. We make loud noises. It's so much more than just being an annoying person or being annoying to our parents. It's developing our understanding of sounds and making them, and that's why like music. And I'm so glad my parents had their band, because music, it really helps you to connect to a lot of things, expressing yourself as well as actually developing these imaginations too, like what Christopher did with the coat hanger. He's like, well, if I do this and this, what can I wonder what it does. And then he's like, okay, I'm doing this, and now I'm an artist now. I'm making music. So now you're imagining yourself to be something, and you're foreseeing yourself to do something. And so that's what's so important about music. Now, you could pick whatever song you want, Jason, whatever you want. Um, but could you play another one for us, please?
Sure. Um, it's funny you said that with about Annie, because I feel like that with the Chipmunks. I can't stand the Chipmunks.
The
Oh,
only
don't
chipmunk
worry,
song
ever since-
I like they made into a chipmunk song is Hold On Tight to Your Dreams.
Oh, that's your favorite song, yeah.
See now you
That's
guys
all
have
music.
broken into the Broadway. Now I've got musicals in my head.
I could do other musicals. I just can't do
No,
Annie.
no, shit, I'm not singing.
I won't sing tomorrow then.
No, please don't. I think I'll kick you off my Zoom.
Sorry.
No, I won't, Christopher. I love you. All right.
You just hate adopted people. No.
Yeah.
I'm adopted.
Oh, yeah, so am I. I'm adopted.
Yeah, so
I actually just found right before Christmas. I found my father, and then 2 days ago I found my mom.
That's awesome.
I found my family when I was 25 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, a long time ago.
All right, so this song, I wrote this one kind of more for my wife, because like depression doesn't just affect you; it affects the people around you, people that love you. And sometimes when I'm going through a bout of it, you get this really bad feeling for the person that you're with, because they're the ones that have to deal with it. You have to deal with it, but so do they. But like, people don't realize that they have to deal with it. They realize you do, but they don't realize that they do. And the whole time, for me, I know sometimes it keeps her up at night. I feel like, just I wish didn't suffer from depression so that she could sleep. You know what I mean? Like, so this song is called Angels and Demons. Oh, mercy me. Angels fighting devils as far as the eye can see. But I don't wish on anyone what was wished on me. So shine down your light so I can finally see the demons in my head, so the angel in my bed can breathe. Alright. The demons in my head, so the angel in my bed can breathe. Yeah, alright. Oh, take my soul and burden me. You're carrying me back home in your sweet release. These old bones, Lord, are crumbling. Shine down your light so you can drive me to the demons in my head, so the angel in my bed can breathe. Alright, oh yeah. From the demons in my head, so the angel in my bed can breathe. Oh, mercy, baby, mercy me. Angels fighting devil as far as the eye can see. But I don't wish on anyone what was wished on me. So pick up your sword and give me sweet relief.
I think that one was really powerful because, like you said, a lot of times what we don't understand is that people around us suffer just as much as we suffer, you know, and it's like with me particularly, like I said, growing up, I had a lot of anger issues, and like I said, I anger issues meaning like I was, it's the reason why I can laugh about it now. It's not funny, it's not funny that my parents had to deal with it, but just saying, um when I was younger, I didn't know how to express myself through words. I could talk, obviously. I was very well articulated in many ways, but I just didn't know how to express that side of me. So I would take that side of me out, and it's not always the nicest side of anybody to see that side of them rear, when it's rearing. And with me, I've always been the type of person where I wouldn't take no crap from anybody. And so a lot of it stemmed from when I was younger. I would be bullied. I had the blonde hair, the blue eyes, perfect little, everybody loved me in school. So I was like picked on for that. That's how it works. When you're not popular, but for some people they're like, oh, she thinks she's so pretty because she's got blonde hair, blue eyes, type of thing. You know what I mean? Um, and so I learned not to take no crap from nobody. And because of it, I had this anger in me where if people would start with me or say something, I would just hit them. You know what I mean? It's not the best way to go about life, no, but as a child, how do you express that? And it took a while to get out of it. Probably by the time I hit like 16, 17, I grew out of it. But you know, we don't understand that those behaviors really affect the people around us, and they suffer because of it. And so that's why that song's really really important, because you know and what we were talking about is because our actions really reflect on the people around us, even though when we're in these spaces, right? And I call them spaces because it's in our own little personal bubble at that time that we're feeling this, and we don't really realize anything outside of that bubble. We contain everything in that bubble, which is ourself. you know we don't realize how much people suffer because of our suffering. And it's important because, even with depression itself, and people who feel like Okay, so there's this one particular person that I know that plays on this depression to gain friends, followers, etc. And I had to recently shine light to that, and I didn't like doing it. Nobody likes to do stuff like that. Um, but you know, there's people out there that truly feel this withdrawal from the world, and it's nothing they could do about it. This is just how they internalize how they feel. It's the emotions. It's something people think, well, why can't they just be happy? Why can't they change? Well, because unfortunately, it's not that they don't want to. It's not that they are doing it intentionally, you know what I mean, where this particular person was. And so that's why I had recently had to call this person out on it, because there are individuals who truly suffer from depression, from anxiety, from all different social withdrawal, you know, all different types of things, and it's not of their own doing. It's because they literally are going through this in their space and time, and they can't look outside of that bubble. Unfortunately, they only internalize everything. And, you know, I think by you writing that song, it also helps your wife to understand that's like, look, I know what you're going through, and I'm sorry, but I can't fix it at this moment. But I just want you to know I am happy you're there for me. I'm happy that you stick it out with me, and, you know, thank you. And that's a lot of it. That's literally, if somebody loves you, cares about you, wants to be with you, they understand every bit of you, whether you think they do or not. It's just us trying to understand that. And there's times we can't, you know what I mean? And those are our darkest times, you know what I mean? And it's, and like I said, with this individual that I had to approach on this matter, you know, they do it more for an attention thing, because they want to gain followers, they want to gain that attention. And so it really irritated me, because, and it just shows how I grown, should I say, as a person, because, you know, like I said, coming from a place of that, because anger is a place of that. Anger is a dark place to be in. You know, so is depression, sadness. You know, those are very dark places to reside in, unfortunately. But you know, for me to be able to understand this individual and then approach it in a way that wasn't demeaning or disrespectful, but in a way that it helped other people to realize it as well as that individual, you know, that was a connection that needed to be made. So with the connection that with this song that you wrote, it shows people that individuals who go through states of depression or states of, we'll just say, when they're in their darkest hours, right? They realize and they understand that, you know, they know that other people are suffering because of them, but it's not about the attention. It's just about the acknowledgement that, like, look, I'm sorry, this is who I am. I'm coming to you with who I am. And you know, it's really an important thing that you did this for her, because you know that just goes to show how strong you and her bond is, because you acknowledge it, she acknowledges it. But that's the first step of healing. That's the first step of getting out of it together. Sometimes we need to have someone to help us to get out of it, you know what I mean, or help us to go through it, in a sense. And here on Goddesses and Devils, that's what we do, you know. The reason why me and Katie did this show and put the show together was because we wanted to speak about things like that, like how your song is speaking to. You know, we wanted to build that communication and build that gap and create a bridge so that the other people on the other side of the bridge can reach you, and then you can meet somewhere in the middle, you know. And that's what we do a lot of our shows about. And for you to take that and put it into music is a way of you expressing the understanding, the feeling. It's you actually showing how much you do care about the people around you. And I think that makes it so much better that you're able to do that. Some people, like I said, use it for unfortunately use it to gain all the wrong things, like the attention or the woe is me, the pity party. And you're like, no, this is just who I am. This is here I am, and you know, accept me as I am. But I'm sorry, I acknowledge it and I respect you for it, but this is who I am, and thank you. Thank you for understanding me. And that's what it's about, you know. And it's, many people deal with depression, and many people deal with it in their own way. And it's one of those things where there's no real cure to it. You can band-aid it with medication, you can band-aid it with therapies, you can help them, but somehow it always reoccurs, depending on what's happening. You know, in this pandemic, it really brought that out of a lot of people, because it's like you already feel isolated as it is, and now the isolation itself is enforced, so now you feel even more isolated. So I think that that song itself probably and will reach a lot of people, you know what I mean? So I'm so happy that you're taking these emotions and you're putting them into your work, because not only are you helping those who can't express themselves and really articulate what they're going through, you also are shining light on the fact that people around you see the suffering as well, and there are people there for you. And it's not about, like I said, making people feel bad or anything like that. It's just like, hey, you know what? I know. Don't worry. I know. And I am who I am. And thank you for being there for me. And that's really, truly like a humbling experience to hear the words, to feel it, and to be able to say that, you know what? This is completely true. This is what people go through. We always look at the one side of it, but we don't look at the whole picture. And that's what it's all about. We're all, no matter what, the people around us, whether they're connected to us or not, they're all around us and we all affect one another. So when you're sad, I'm sad. You know what I mean? When she's sad, everybody's sad type of thing. And for you to take that and put it in such a way that people understand is really important nowadays, because people are forgetting how to talk, how to communicate, how to express themselves. With all the social media and all this stuff going on, people are losing sight of themselves. So
Yeah.
it's really important that you continue with this and continue sharing this. And I'm so thankful that you were able to share it with my viewers as well. So thank you for that, and I appreciate you for that.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on. This is a very cool thing that you guys are doing. And, it's amazing through all of with COVID and the lockdowns, how people were able to adjust. And even like friends of mine that are musicians, they started shows similar to yours. And same thing with me. I mean, the radio station's been going for a few years, but we've had to pivot in this also. So it's really neat to see, because if you love music and you love the arts and stuff like this is so great to have like a show, to be able to. It's creating. You guys are creating something amazing. That's very cool, and you get to cater it to what you believe in, which is even better. You know what I mean? So I appreciate the opportunity.
No, thank you. And like I said, thank you. And that's why, like, I wanted you to be able to come on today and be able to share your music with everybody, because everybody needs it. We need to get out of this depressive state that we're all in because of the pandemic, because of all this stuff going on. We can literally turn to music. We can turn to other things to uplift us, to raise our vibration, to raise our frequency, to help us to overcome it. It's not going to replace all the sadness that we felt, and it's not going to replace anything. But what it's going to do is it's going to allow us for that one moment to experience a space within ourselves where we can just feel nothing but that music and that happiness and that release from all of that. And that's what, like, with me, like, I do write, I do art stuff. Like, I like to draw, haven't been able to do it a lot because I had an injury back in December, that, like, when I start drawing or doing things, it really affects my shoulder and the nerves in my arm, so it makes it difficult for me to do it. And there was a time where, because of the injury, I started feeling like really just withdrawn, really upset, because I can't function, I can't do things. And I was like, well, my mouth still works. You know what I
Right.
mean? My mouth still works. And so when we created this show, it was literally right around the time that I got injured. So it allows me to be able to continue to do what I love and help people as well. And in doing so, like I said, we make that connection, we open up the communication, we show people that, whatever you want to do, just do it, just go for it. You know what I mean? Be authentic, be you. Don't be like that little model on the TikTok that's doing silly things and then
Right.
try to do that challenge. You know what I mean? It's about so much more. And like I said, with music, it actually helps you to escape that space for even if it's just for a half hour or 5 minutes or whatever it is, just for that brief second. And that's what I do too. When I get, when I'm upset or when I'm not in the mood or whatever, I'll just put on something. And a lot of times my choice is a rock, believe it or not. I know I said it like 100 times, so, but my choices are rock. And, but like I said, it's just a way of healing, like I said. And people don't understand that there are so many other things out there that you can do, whether it's sitting alone in a room for 10 minutes and just being by yourself and reconnecting with yourself, learning what you like, whether it's knitting, whether it's drawing, whether it's writing music, composing music, whatever it may be. There's always alternatives, but we rely so heavily on the internet and the social media that we literally don't have that chance. So that's why me and Katie decided that we were going to do goddesses and devils. And it's funny because people look at our title and they're like, goddesses and devils, really? That seems like an ego thing, but it's really not. And goddesses and devils represents the
The good and
inner.
bad side of life, the duality of life, like
Exactly.
basically the harmonizing of men and women coming together.
My role on here is usually the mischievous one. I'm usually the devil, right, Katie and Amanda?
Yes, you're usually my little devil.
Well, sometimes Amanda and I switch, so I can be the devil, Amanda can be the angel or the goddess, and Amanda's the devil. Most of the time, who is the devil on this show? I don't know.
I don't know. It all depends on our mood,
The
right?
debate is out.
Well, yeah, and that's what Katie was saying. It's we chose this title because everybody, no matter who you are, has that duality within them, and they can swing either way, right? One, you wake up and you're in a good mood. By the end of the day, you're in a shitty mood. You know what I mean? It's just the way it works out. You know what I mean? It's a duality within us to have that good and that dark side, or that light
and
and
not
and
only
the
that,
darkness, whatever they want to call it. But it's just the self,
and
and
not,
that's why we did goddesses and devils.
and not only that, I mean, duality is also about seeing that gray area, the what's in between,
Mhm.
that taboo, which is why we go into a taboo a lot, because it's that gray area that or we can explore the stuff that's not spoken about. We all know what the word yes means, and we all know what the word no means. But what about I don't know? What does that mean? And we go up that down the rabbit hole or up the garden path, whatever you want to do, and explore the perception, sitting on that fence and explore what's the good and the bad, what's the alternative, why do we act and think and feel the way that we do, and why do we provoke ourselves into thinking that taboo subjects are taboo when they're really not? They're actually ancient.
I have a
ancient
question then,
subjects.
Katie,
What's
because
that?
you went to college, and Amanda, I bet your teachers probably gave the famous college essay question, why do we exist?
I've already done an article on that. It's up on my website. If anyone wants to go look at it, it's
Did you have to write a paper on that one too, Amanda?
Yeah, for believe it or not, I had to do that for my philosophy class. And the way I answer that is to pose the same question. Well, why do we? Do we choose to? Do we want to? Is there a divine intervention that created us? Well, why do we exist?
Maybe you can answer that question.
I can tell you the answer.
What's the answer, Katie?
Well, mommy and daddy.
Oh, Katie.
Hey, that's not we've been down this road before, Amanda. Like, really?
Mommy
Yeah.
and
There's
Daddy
no longer
created.
taboo on this subject.
Right, but see, and that's what it is. And it's like, that's why like I really wanted Jason on the show, because like I said, what we do here is similar to what you do with your music.
Right.
And it's one of those things that people need to understand, that there's so much more they can do if they allow themselves to do it. Yes, finances always come into play. Yes, other things, but picking up a pen and paper or scratching a lyric into a piece of dirt outside with with a stick is really not anything different. You know what I mean? It's about opening and expanding yourself and being able to achieve what you want because you want to do it, not because somebody says you should do it. Just like with college, college, I created my own path. I didn't stick to anybody's path. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. Yeah, I went to the advisor. Oh, I advise you to do this. I'm like, well, thank you for your opinion, and I'm gonna do what I want. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And I did what I want, and that's what it's about. It's being able to express yourself in a safe, positive manner that also helps to influence individuals around you in order to help them in their times to understand that they can be whoever they want to be, no matter what label society throws at them, no matter what they think they can't do. You don't have to have an amazing voice to sing and enjoy singing, you know what I mean? And you don't have to put the fear behind it of what people think, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what they think. It matters whether or not you're happy doing what you're doing and if you're hurting or not hurting anybody. And that's what it really comes down to. You know what I mean? And with music, it allows you to take all of those feelings and put it into a song and compose something that everybody's like, wait a minute, I felt like that. Wait a minute, I know that. I can relate to that. And then it's about giving them that positive feeling that comes with it of being able to be submersed in the lyrics, in the music, in the sounds. And it makes them for a small second, and like I said, if not a half an hour, hopefully, you know, whatever, how long, it allows them to escape their everyday worries, their feelings, their, you know, it allows them to really process it, but it allows them to escape it for just a moment. And that's all it is that life is composed of a bunch of moments. It's just whether or not you choose how you want to go through with that moment and what you choose to do in that moment. And it only takes a moment to change something, you know what I mean? And you know, that's why it's so important. And unfortunately, like I said, I honestly have, like I said, and Katie has worked with several people who've um unfortunately haven't quite understood that yet. And that's the point of, you know, life. The whole point of life is lessons. You know, we're learning from one another, we're growing from one another, it's teaching us something, but it's whether or not you choose to hold on to that lesson and choose to either follow it, make your own lesson, become who you want to be. And that's what it really is, you know what I mean? And with music, it allows you to express that. It allows you to be that person you want to be. Like I said, I could sing. I don't sing terribly. You know what I mean? I don't. And me and my mom, we used to do that on our spare time together. We used to throw on country music or whatever music, and we used to just sit there with the record and down in the recording studio that my dad had, and we would sing together. But that was a moment it's not about the music anymore. It's about the bond we had, the spending time. So it's like music allows you that door to take that moment and run with it. You know what I mean? If you want to imagine that
Mm-hmm.
you're you're in that song, if you want to imagine that you could create that song, whatever it is, it's the idea of being able to get lost in that moment just for a minute and being able to come out of it like, wow, I
And
feel
if
that. I
it's
can
not
understand that.
that, and if it's not
Yeah.
that, it's the activism that goes behind the message.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hey, music is the soundtrack to our lives. So I mean, whatever you're going through is tends to be what you put on. So like if you're feeling good and you're happy and you're excited, you tend to listen to something that's more upbeat and happy and if you're going through something sad, you tend to put on something sad. I mean, just to embellish the feeling, and the feeling is what lets you know you're alive. I mean, the meaning of life is to live, is to live every minute that you have, not to give things up. You know what I mean? Like make it make it real, like enjoy it and hopefully leave something behind. um
And not only
but I
that, I mean, this is the and it's the music is the only way that we can actually express our vulnerabilities when we can't express it, because a lot of people have trouble trying to express emotion. So music is the next best thing to doing it. And it's the
right,
same way. It's the same reason why, you know, you might have a partner or a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever the case may be, or husband or wife. They play a wedding song, or let's just say husband and wife. You're at a wedding and you play a wedding song. That song is somewhat cryptic because the lyrics is what conveys the message between a husband and wife as they're getting married, and that becomes thus their wedding song. So it's no different to the way we express. It's no different to the way we share songs with our friends. You know, this is the same. It's the same way that you convey your music.
sure, it's like a scent. You know, if you smell, if you're, let's say you're Italian and your mother used to make big Italian meals on Sundays, now it's 40 years later and you smell like a big Italian meal, it brings you back to that household. You know what I mean? Like different sense, different music. Like, take Pink Floyd, The Wall. I hadn't listened to it in ages. I mean, when things went to CD, they just had a compressed sound, and that album doesn't sound as good compressed. So I just stopped listening to it. And then a few years ago, I bought a turntable and a whole Fisher stereo system. And I bought The Wall and I put it on. And just listening to the album itself brought me back to being a kid and listening to it then. A good example is the movie. You ever see the movie Almost Famous?
Yep.
Yes.
There was a scene in that movie where he goes underneath her bed, his sister's bed, and he pulls out a suitcase and it's filled with all her albums. And he puts on The Who, Tommy, and they did something really cool in the movie. When he puts the album on, now the movie's in surround sound and everything, but when he puts the album on, they put it in a mono source. So you feel and it sounds like you're listening to a record as opposed to, just a piece of the soundtrack of the album. But just that mono sound of the record brings you back to listening to albums, and it just gave you this feeling of like 1970. I think they were in 1973, but the late 70s and the early 80s of buying albums and just putting them on the thing and putting that mono source on and hearing the analog sound. It just gave you a feel, and it was like I haven't heard The Who or that album in forever, and when it went on, I could picture and feel and smell exactly where I was the first time I heard that album.
And
I was in my room in my parents' house. My mom was cooking downstairs, and I just remember thinking like, wow, hearing it in the movie brought me right back to that place. Music does that.
And the perfect analogy of that too is when we listen to vinyls, because vinyls can bring back a hell of a lot of memories. I grew up on vinyls, but then we fast forward into the eras. Who remembers grabbing a cassette tape and recording the radio?
Oh yeah,
I do.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Those days.
I have a funny story about a cassette tape. So my sister Stacy has old cassette player and and has old cassettes and things like that, and she gave it to my kids and she recorded them for me on just on her phone. She did a regular recording and she asked them, do you know what this is? For the life of them, they could not figure out what a cassette tape was and how it worked and where you put it. And you got all the new little millenniums trying to figure out what a cassette tape was and what you're supposed to do with it. And it's like one of those things. It's like, I remember 8-tracks. My dad had 8-tracks. He had vinyls. He had a bunch of different things. Like I said, my dad was a musician, so he collected a bunch of stuff. And I still remember that song, Don't Worry, Be Happy was one of them on his on his 8-track. And you know what I mean? And so when I remember that, I could remember sitting in the den and listening to that, and my dad's like, oh, this is a good song, and he's sitting there, bobbing away to it, and I'm just like, okay. But it was
or something like that.
Yeah, and it was the point of like, obviously I didn't get the idea of the song. I was little, but I still remember that memory, which brings me back to the song. And then I was able, as an older person, was able to go back and like, oh, I get what this means now. Yeah, I get what the song meant and why he was singing it to me.
Yeah, but
And he honestly, I remember every Friday night he would go down and do his band, and it was his band, and they would play Stand By Me, and that was their song. That's me and my dad's song. It's always been me and my dad's song. And every time I hear it, I remember it. But funny enough, the first song that my husband and I ever danced to was Stand By Me. So it has like a double meaning now, you know what I mean? And it was like, it was funny because my husband just goes and he goes to the jukebox. We were at a bar, and we were playing pool, and he puts this on. He's like, would you have this dance with me? And I'm just like, no, I can't dance this with you. He's like, what? And he was so taken back by by my comment, but I was like, no, this is me and my dad's song. You can't have this song. Pick another one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was being a jerk about it, but then I just gave in and was dancing. But it created a whole new moment because I was so afraid of losing that old moment.
Right.
But that's the thing, we can always build new moments or build moments around moments. You know what I mean? And it
Mm-hmm.
made me understand that that day when he asked me to dance with him to that song, I was like, I literally was like pissed off that he asked me, like, no, it's my dad's song. You can't, you, no, we got to pick something else. Like, this
Yeah.
is something else. You know what I
You know
mean?
It's
what?
like it's
The moment you need will be the moment that comes back to you.
Exactly. And that's what's so important with it. And music itself has a way of triggering that, just like you said with smells. You know what I mean? It has a way of triggering it. For some reason, it just turns something on in our mind when we're least expecting it, and we're like, wait a minute, I wasn't even thinking about that. How did that pop up?
Right.
And it does. And it's like you said, it's in the times that we need it. That's what I was saying earlier. You know, we could be walking down the street and we could hear
do our
something
Diddy.
playing on a car radio passing by, but it takes us back to a place that we were happy with. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then for that moment, we're out of that moment of anger or being upset or whatever we were dealing with that at that second, and we just for a second, and in many ways, to me, it's like a also coming used as like a spiritual thing. You know what I mean? It connects us to ourself, our true self. So it's really amazing how that all works out, but it does work, and it works for everybody, believe it or not. You know, we all have that. It's so encompassed in our culture that it's just easy for us to do that together.
Yeah.
Jason, as a
Yeah.
musician, I bet you were happy that they put all of our music back onto vinyl.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'll tell I love vinyl. Vinyl to me, like we went into the studio and we recorded these little vinyl albums. It's called direct to vinyl. So we went into the studio and they had this old I forgot what they called it. It's kind of like a lathe. Yeah, it is a lathe. And we play, it goes into the board, and then the board um, uses the waveforms and then cuts the vinyl. And the quality isn't the greatest, but it has so much feel because it's analog. Like when the drum is hit, you can hear that hit. But it also has like a because it's lathe recording, it's not press. Like so there's two different types of vinyl. There's lathe where they cut it as you're recording it, and then there's press where they make a master and then they press it from there. And so the lathe recording is what they used to do in like the 20s and the 30s and stuff like that. So that's what we did. And it kind of came out like that really old jazz blues style, but you can only put like one song on now. You can only use, I think you can use both sides, but it was like it would only be like the length of one song. But I love vinyl. I'm so happy that it's coming back. I hope recording studios um, start doing analog again because there's a real big difference. Look, digital is a digital representation of what they think the instrument's supposed to sound like.
It's
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 not like
auto
amazing.
tune.
Some areas it's really hard to get CDs now. You can
yeah.
only get vinyl.
Oh yeah, there's like musicians. I don't even think anybody really makes CDs anymore. They just use the files and then they share them either on a thumb drive or now they have these little cards or you just download them. You go to shows and you bring your download cards and you sell them for $5 or something like that. People go home and then they just download the album, with using the code on the card. It's completely different, but it still causes a little bit of an issue for me because I kind of feel like when I was growing up, the album artwork was just as important as the music that was on the album. I remember like Anthrax and all these like really heavy bands, they had cool artwork. And Pink Floyd always had like amazing, really like introspective, bizarre, like you wouldn't notice until you really looked at the album what was going on. Yes, always had crazy artwork. And I mean, now you hand someone a little card with just information on it. There's no beauty in that. There's no love in that. I mean, the music is one thing, but I used to sit on my bed, read the liner notes while I'm listening to the album. It was kind of a pain in the neck, like after every 15
The
minutes, flip it over.
album to my favorite song is Clear. They make it clear vinyl.
Right.
The album Time from ELO.
Oh yeah.
It is but it's very hard to find a special edition. It's like it just not the traditional black colors, clear.
I thought you meant it was very hard to find, like if it was sitting on the floor or something like that, because it's clear. You couldn't
No,
see
it's
it.
hard to find in the stores. It's like 30 bucks.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, a lot of vinyl today is very expensive. It's more expensive than it was when it was originally out.
Unless you go to a thrift store and you might find a whole crate full of them, and you're like, oh, I'll
Right.
snap that up for $5.
For like $1.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you remember that you have the one half of the crowd that were actually listening to vinyl and doing their little floor dances and all that kind of stuff in their own homes, and then you have the other ones that, as kids growing up, and you have your parents saying, "Don't touch that vinyl record player! You'll scratch the damn vinyl."
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how many times that my brothers and sisters got told off for touching that needle.
Oh yeah. Or you couldn't jump on the floor because it would skip.
Mhm. I remember I used to put my toys on it as it would spin. And I used to watch my toys spin and hope they'd fall off. Yeah, I used to get in trouble for it, but I still did it. I'm not even
What
gonna
is
lie.
it
I
with
told
you
you,
and
I was a pain in the ass. I did whatever I wanted to do half the time. I mean, my parents were always right there, like, no, don't do that. And I'm just like, okay. 2 minutes later, I'll do it again. You know what I mean?
Right.
Amanda, can I ask you what's going to be your next spinning story? Because last week we did the ceiling fan. Now you're telling me spinning vinyls. What's next week?
Yeah. So I literally was such what's the best way to say it? I call it a
A
pain in
rebel.
the ass because I'm sure my parents literally were like they had their hands full with me. But like I literally was so I don't know, like I was just so interested in everything that like literally like I said I would put my Barbie dolls hanging from the ceiling fan and try to hit people as they went by because I thought it was funny, like because you had to dodge and duck and and I used to do it too.
It's funny.
And I don't know how many times those things hit me in the head, but I was just like, okay, I'll do it again. You know what I mean? And then with my dad's vinyls, like I said, he used to put them on. I used to go and take my toys and put them on there and see if they'd fall off, and he'd get them trapped in the thing. And so I used to get in trouble for that. I don't know. I mean, maybe in a past life I invented the wheel or something. I don't know. Because like I used to make all these inventions. Like I even did I'm terrible. I even took all my mom's yarn and knitting stuff and including her sewing stuff, and I decided to use the sewing stuff instead because it was more transparent, and I made a bunch of spider webs in my yard. And I made my whole yard into a big giant spider web one day. And I remember my dad coming home from work and he got stuck in it and he couldn't get out of it. And then he was like, don't build any more spider webs. So the next day I did it again and I caught the mailman in it. And so I literally I was just so inventive. And I think that's what it really was, that I had nowhere. Because like I said, growing up, they really didn't have a lot of things for kids. You would just be told to go play outside with your friends when the street lights come in, get yourself back in the
Mhm.
house type of thing. You know what I mean?
We do
That's
have a
how it
caller.
used to be.
Hi guys.
Hi, how are you?
Good. A minute. Let me get my things on. How are you doing?
We're doing good. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hello, Chris. How are you doing?
Do you,
All right.
do you have a question
haven't-
for the guest?
Heard your voice in a long time.
Yeah. Now you
Did-
know what I look like. We look like each other. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Do you have a
And
question for
my
the guest, Marie?
Huh?
Do you have a question for the guest?
Oh yes. I don't know what you guys were talking about, anyways, but yeah. Hang on. I don't know. What was the subject of tonight's show?
Music.
Yeah.
Music. Okay. My question was, does anybody like old music, like Nirvana and stuff, like that old music?
I mean, yeah, does that inspire some of your music? I think it's.
Yeah.
Like how old?
Like Nirvana,
Oh yeah,
like,
sure.
yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. Grunge kind of came out when I was in college,
Oh,
and
cool.
it was man, it was so cool. It was so different than everything that was out. It was all about feel. I mean, these guys, they came from, the suicide capital of the world, and
Yeah,
they
I
were
was
just,
lucky.
yeah, they just went unnoticed, and they didn't care. They just put it all out there, and God, it was so mind blowing. Especially it came out of the '80s, where you had like all these hair bands and these pretty boys dancing around on stage in spandex,
Yeah.
bright colors, and then you had these guys come out with like ripped jeans and army jackets and long
Oh
hair, and
man.
they weren't happy and singing about sex and stuff. They were mad and they were sad and they were singing about things that mattered and that dug in. It was so cool. It was
They
so
were
beautiful.
among the very few 90s bands I liked. I liked them and Green Day.
Oh, Green Day, they're awesome, Chris.
Well, with Nirvana, they had actually a couple good hits that Teen Spirit was one of them. Heart Shaped Box
Yes.
was one of them. I love Heart Shaped Box, actually. That's one of my favorites. And right around that time, or either a little bit before or after, Alice in Chains came out with something
Mhm.
similar to their type of music, which I loved. Alice in Chains, Man in the Box. So Nirvana in many ways was one of the bands that made I would say made a mark, and it allowed other artists to start coming out with the same thing, because before that, it was more of that, like, you had Pantera, Black Sabbath, you had all those, and Nirvana put
Yeah.
a twist on it, you know what I mean?
Well,
Mhm.
see,
Yeah.
You had Nirvana do "Smells Like Teen Spirit," and then NERD came out with Rockstar, which was very similar. Two different music styles, but very similar in
Mhm.
the lyrics that they were conveying.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think Nirvana was one of the pioneers in their time to actually open up other, the doors for other
Mhm.
artists to come in and say, oh, well, if they could do it, because it always takes that one group to actually stand out and do something and create that movement. Like, many
Yep.
people don't like Marilyn Manson. Marilyn Manson is like one of my, I would say, favorite artists. Like,
Oh
literally,
my
hands down, I love
Yeah.
gosh!
Marilyn Manson. But Marilyn Manson, because of his antics and the way he dressed and you know, the way he uh did his songs, they pretty much was like that he was an occultist, that he was into
Mhm.
Satanism, all this other stuff, and he's antichrist, and that wasn't true at all. He was actually just
It was actually
making a statement with his music. And a lot of times that's what artists do. They make statements with their music, just like what I was saying earlier with Jason's music. He makes statements, and the statements that he makes are, in many ways impactful, because it affects so many listeners and viewers. If, like, let's say that you're viewing him live, or if you're viewing other artists live, it impacts them, because that builds up that moment of, like, oh my God, I can't, I remember when I was young and I went to go see these people play, and it was so amazing. And whoever the artist is, so I said people as like plural, whoever it is. But that's what music does for you. You know what I mean? It's in its own sense, it's kind of like, people say drugs, or, no, and music is very, in its own way, can have that toxifying feeling, where it just
Mhm.
puts you on a whole different level, emotionally and eternally. And you don't have to use drugs or drink or anything like that to feel it, but it allows you to experience it in a whole different frequency, vibration. And that's one of the things I notice with music,
Yeah.
when and Jason can go into this a little further, with woodwind versus, percussion and things like that. When you hit them, you feel it internally differently. Like, we feel the
Mhm.
vibration of that music.
Yeah, the waveform. I mean, anything, when two people talk to each
Yeah.
other, it's not a digital thing. It's not numbers. It's a waveform. So the music should be the same way. It should be that waveform. Like, even going back to grunge, like, actually that was kind of funny. So like Nirvana, you're right. Like when they came out, everybody was like, "This is grunge." Like they created grunge and blah. But it was, first of all, they were an LA band. They weren't even a Seattle band. Um, but it was just the way
Actually,
that it was just the way that they
Nirvana, I'd like to correct you there because Nirvana was a garage band in Aberdeen,
well, they
Washington.
all yeah, but all the musicians were from L.A.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah,
Yeah, and
Huh.
so and actually one of the first bands that got signed was Mother Love Bone, and the singer died. He OD'd, and
Uh,
when he OD'd, his best friend and his roommate put a tribute album together for him. And
uh-huh.
his best friend was Chris Cornell and
Mm-hmm.
Soundgarden, and then his roommate was Eddie Vedder from Pearl Jam, and then that was the Temple of the Dog album. So the Temple of the Dog, um, the this guy Andrew Woods was the dog. He was the dog. The Temple of the Dog was a tribute album from him for him from Mother Love Bone. There's a movie called Singles, and in the movie, um, you see a lot of those bands. They're in the movie. They're actually acting in the movie, and there's one scene when they're driving to the clubs, and as they're driving to the clubs, they're going to see Soundgarden and Alice in Chains. And on their way there, you see they're showing scenes of Seattle out the window, and there's this big wall, and on the wall it says Mother Love Bone, like somebody painted Mother Love Bone on it. And it was like paying homage to one of the originators of grunge. But he was already dead by the time that movie came out. And
Oh.
yeah, and he died the same way. Well, not with the shotgun, but you know, he died just like both of it was drugs and depression, and you know,
Yeah. Kurt Cobain.
yeah, he died this. Not like I said, Kurt Cobain would have
No,
shot
wait.
himself. He shot himself with a shotgun or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
They
Well,
found him in his family's garage. Well, it's his own house at the time, garage.
Yeah.
But he had been missing for like 3 days before they even found him. But he did take his own life, and a lot of that they did say he dealt with depression, but it was amplified with the drug use because what a lot of people don't understand is when you use drugs, it inhibits your mental capacity and your emotional capacity, and it causes, if you have underlying conditions like mental health conditions like depression, it actually amplifies it. um and with him, he would say he would hear voices, and so he had a lot going on, but I don't think that I especially with the whole situation, drugs didn't really help the situation whatsoever, where he would take drugs to kind of like numb that feeling. And it's similar to like I don't know if you guys are familiar with Gigi Allen. Gigi Allen was one of the grungers in a sense, where he would put on these just grotesque type of uh displays where he'd get naked on stage, he would sing, he would cut himself, he would do really extensive like damage, like he would get into fights with the audience, but this was the grunge, this was like the mosh pits. So in many ways, Gigi Allen was one of the people that started with the mosh pits. And when we look at it, it the way we look at it is like, wow, there's something wrong with you if you got to be in a mosh pit kicking people and hitting people. But
No.
what they were doing is, a lot of these people were troubled people, and they would go to these mosh pits and these events where they would go and listen to the music. The music would create this euphoric feeling within them. Yes, sometimes they were paired with drinking and drugs, but they would go in this mosh pit and they would hit each other and they would punch each other. But they were never hateful towards one another. It was just a thing. But it was a self-expression of their feelings. And, you know, we see that with the music, with Nirvana as well. Nirvana had a really interesting way, because they really, like I said, they pioneered a lot through the way that they combine different melodies. They weren't really industrialized in a sense. Some musicians now use industrial rock and things like that, where they have these animatronic sounds and all this crazy stuff in there. But they were on that border. And then when we go back further, we look at Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper was one of the, and Kiss, they were the first couple of bands to actually start with the face painting and putting on a theatrics performance in their shows. Same with Black Sabbath, and Ozzy took it. So it was kind of where they were swinging out of that type of lifestyle, which was like the 80s rock, and then we started seeing bands like Nirvana introducing grunge or alternative
And
style
then of
music
course,
into
and then
um
and then of course
into existence.
and then of course you've got to add in the goth part of that, and that is way before Marilyn Manson's time, is Meatloaf.
Right.
Yes,
I
I
remember
remember
them.
watching. Me too.
And of course, a lot of these
On
artists
TV.
too, musicians become so, they're like, okay, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this for love, and I'm gonna be, they're very very creative people, and then fame attacks them, and then they go into drugs and alcohol, and eventually that's what
Ooh.
kills them because they don't know their coping skills goes right out
Mhm.
the window, and they're more
Yeah.
interested in what the fans can do for them and how many groupies they can have rather than actually look after themselves. And that's why
Right.
you
And
see a lot of
Yeah.
the
but
newer
that's not all
bands.
artists. I mean, we see that
Um,
trending more with the rock scene than we do with other.
but I
But
mean,
you know,
a lot of the girl bands too. They've gone down. Even the most recent ones, they've gone down that route as well. It's not to say mostly it's due to drugs and alcohol. This is more to do with people that have become mentally unstable,
mhm,
who just cannot cope. They can't
right.
cope with the pressure of fame or being a musician or the environment that they're around,
Well,
which
that's
Mhm.
like
leads to
one of the
depression.
earlier rock bands that I used to listen to that was female was Kitty. Kitty was actually, I don't know if you remember that. Kitty was awesome. Like
Yeah.
they had an amazing vocalist. And they were on the scene for like a year or two and then they
Just
just died
disappeared.
out. Yeah. But I was wondering, Jason, at this point, do you want to play another song for us?
Yeah, sure. I'll do another. There we go. Take to your shit, baby. Put down your tone. This is not worth all the pain. Carry your own flame. May the wind fill your sails. May you find shelter from the rain. Still, you got these reasons to believe. Angels are with miracles will release you from all your pain. You'll feel safe again. With old faded photos, your mercies forsake. The dirty old man wear smile. You were just a baby in a pretty pink dress. You ain't seen that dress, baby, in a while. But still you got these reasons to believe. Angels on with miracles will release you from all your pain. You'll wear that pink dress again. So give in your silver, trade in your gold. Try to recapture all your dreams. You found all your love has somehow been sold. You may understand all it means, but still you got these reasons to believe. Angels on with miracles will release release you from all your pain. And you'll find your passion again. And you'll wear that pinche skin, alright. And the wind will fill your sails. I said the wind will fill your sails. I said the wind will fill your sails again. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So now with this particular song you just sing, do you want to explain to the viewers like where you developed this from and how you came up with this song and its representation?
Yeah, this one was a little bit different in the writing. It was kind of
Hang on, hang
it's
on,
kind
guys.
You can go ahead.
it's kind of a song that um kind of says like whatever your hardships, whatever your difficulties, whatever. I mean, and it could be something as just brutal, from completely brutal and mind bending, and you feel like you're never gonna get over it, but you will. Like hindsight's always 2020. So when it's happening to you, you feel like this is it. Like I can't. I'm not gonna live like this. But then 20 years from now, and you look back and you think like, yeah, I did. I lived through it. I went through all that, and here I am now. So like the first verse is kind of like, hey, the wind is taken out of your sails. The second verse gets a little, it's like a little girl in her pink dress, and then just like people that kind of ruined her throughout her life, but it doesn't change who she is. It just depends on how she looks at it. You just got to believe that if you fight through it, things are going to get better. They won't stay the same. They're either going to get better or they're going to get worse. But either way, you're still going to be there. You still have an option because you're still there. If you don't choose that, you don't have options anymore. You're not there anymore. So it's the same thing. Like some people, the last verse, some people lose their passion in whatever they love because they get all wrapped up in life. They forget about the things that they loved as a kid. And just like we were talking about vinyl, like some people that don't like music anymore, put a vinyl album on for them, you'll see all of a sudden they fall in love with it again. Whatever your passions are, those are the things that help you get through things. But when you give them up, you don't have that anymore. When you have those issues, how do you get through? You got to just hang in there and make sure you go back to the things that you love. And like in our case, it's art. Depending on it could be music, it could be film, it could be whatever it is. Visual art, doesn't matter. If you have it and it helps you, never let life take it away from you. Because it does, man. It takes it away from people sometimes, and it makes life more difficult. It blurs the question of why we're here.
No, and that's 100% true. We situations itself is what we make them to be. Now, if we choose to overcome them, we will. If we choose not to, then we won't. And it doesn't matter what the situation is, it's just the thought you put behind it. And, me and Katie, we actually did a show a couple months back about that. About how, you can't force a person to like you or what they think of you. You can't force that upon them. But what you can do is decide who you want to be. And it really has to do with accountability. You have to be accountable for yourself, your own actions. You can't be accountable for what others do, say, or choose to do. And that with this song in general, it expresses that in many ways that, there's always an up, there's always a down, but it's just whether or not you choose to fight another day type of thing and how you overcome it. And we all have that in us to do so. It's just whether or not we want to. And nobody can make us want to either. And so a lot of like what I was, what I've been realizing too, a lot of the songs you write come from and can be used therapeutically, like I said, to express matters of the mind. And me and Katie, we actually, like I said on this show, we discuss a lot about psychology because I study psychology. Katie studies psychology as well. I also have
Mhm.
degrees as well. So does Katie. And when you do that, you open that part of that mind for people to understand that it's like, hey, listen, you're not the only one. There's so many people out there that feel this way. There's so many other feelings that go into it. There's so many other people around you that feel differently. And it's whether or not you choose to see or be or whatever the person you want to be. And so I like the fact that your music really expresses that because a lot of times music nowadays express motives. Oh, I want to be with you because I want to have sex with you. I want to do so. But it's, you know, what about the real emotional aspect of it? And I think that with music itself, we've seen a lot of that leave with the 80s and the 90s. A
Right.
lot of that switched out. Daryl mentioned in the comment, what about Poison? Poison was one of those bands that actually did speak about many of this stuff. Something to Believe In is one of my favorite songs by them.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what we were discussing tonight.
Mhm.
You got to believe in something. You have to. It's
Yeah.
not about people around you. Same thing with Prince. Prince was very different in his way he approached music, but it was very emotionally driven as well, just like Purple Rain or
Mhm.
When Doves Cry. They tell a story of his life and what he went through. And now, like I said, in new age music, it's just the same stuff. It's all about either sex, selling drugs, stealing, robbing, doing something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
It's
no.
not much of that emotion that goes into it. And what's really sad is here where I live, you know, they took away rock stations. So now they only have like classic rocks that if I'm lucky I could get Journey on there every so often. You know what I mean? So I have to rely heavily on my CDs, to and even some of the songs you can't get on a CD. You know what I mean? So it's
And that's
like you
why.
lose sight of music because it's kind of like it it's just being shifted out. And it shouldn't be like that. If you go to like Sirius XM, then you could find all different genres. But if you do like basic radio station, they remove rock because they said that there was so much um so many people being driven by their lyrics, and that's why they wanted to get rid of it. Then they were like, oh, people are just not interested in rock anymore. And it's like, well, soul, blues, jazz, you know, that literally classical music, that literally was the paving stones for all this alternative and grunge and
Right.
you know rap in a sense.
Well,
you know bef-
in a way, a lot of people are turning to indie music now because
Mhm.
they're finding
Mhm.
the mainstream music very lackluster. Like, I mean, I don't want to hear about relationships all the time. I don't want to hear about who's having sex with who and whose baby mama or who baby daddy uh, went down the street to go screw with somebody else's baby mama and how many children they've had and how many drugs you've smoked or puffed or taken in
Sold.
order to get
My
high
God,
and
what song are you listening to?
uh, you want to collaborate, but no. There's a lot of people now that are going with this movement. Especially, I do a lot of holistic stuff, and there are a lot of people in that movement that are more or less looking for lyrics of motivation, inspiration. Just like when that song came out, fight song. You know, we were at that particular time we were looking for something to drive the human culture, race, call it what you will, to something better and greater than what it was before. And of course, a lot of these mainstream songs don't come up with that. And of course, that song did go mainstream, but these artists, what they're known for is the songs that they have on their album. I mean, an album what has generally somewhere between 10 to 15 songs, but you're looking at one song for that one particular artist. Now, if I go through Jason's album, the songs that he's singing right now, yes, I might like them, but there are other songs on the album that are overlooked and not really spoken about because we're focused on the ones that have been put out first. And the songs that are not put out are generally the ones that are actually most listened to. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jason.
No, you're right. I mean, you have to remember there's a whole machine behind it. So basically, all right, prime example, when Quiet Riot first came out, they had that song Mental Health, right? So bang your head, mental health will drive you mad. So I got that album for my birthday. It must have been, I don't know, it was in the 80s. And there was a song on there called Thunderbird. Was it Thunderbird? Yeah, I think it was called Thunderbird. It was such a cool song. It was my favorite song on the album. I never heard of it. Never saw it on MTV. Never heard it on the radio. Same thing, Allman Brothers. They have a song called Tuesday's Gone. It's my favorite Allman Brothers song. Or Allman Brothers or Lynyrd Skynyrd. It's my favorite Lynyrd Skynyrd song. And they had some big hits, but you never hear it on the radio. So, like, prime example. So my radio station, we play only original independent artists, and we do it for all different genres because we base it off of a feel. We don't base it off of a genre.
Yeah.
So basically, there could be a rap song that really makes you feel something because it's not about all those other things that you guys were saying. It's something, they're rapping about something more deep. There could be a rock song where it's inspiring, or there could be a folk song that you can really feel the pain in what they're doing. So if we feel the music, we play it, and it's an app too, and it's all over the world, but it's growing. And like, I know that, there's a lot of radio stations that are hurting, but this format, the original independent artists, no mainstream artists or anything like that, it catches on so quickly, and people just kind of gravitate to it because it's real music by real musicians.
Exactly.
And that's the difference. Like, it's not a producer saying, hey, Michael Jackson beat, it's got to be an upbeat, funky, fun tune. It's basically a musician that owns the radio station that says, I want to hear from the artist, untethered, unmuddied by a producer. I want to hear the artist himself, herself. So it's like, when you take away all the stuff that goes between the listener and the artist, or when you put too much between the listener and the artist, you lose a lot of it. But when it's just the listener and the artist, it has a personal connection and a personal feel if they're doing it for the right reasons, and that's what we choose to play, and that's what people tend to gravitate to. So like before, when you said that there's no rock stations and that you have to kind of find it off of the mainstream, it's true, and that's what we're off of the mainstream. And I see that because in different places all around the world, it's like, especially in the United States, it's like they're trying to get rid of rock. They say country music is 99% of the trending market, but then I know more people that like rock music than country. So how can you say that as a whole? It's not. My dad has a saying, reports are made for liars by liars.
Yeah.
And
ain't that the truth?
Say it again.
Ain't that the truth? And
Yeah.
I listen to a genre that a lot of people would be surprised is still being recorded, but not done very much here in the States. Rockabilly.
Oh yeah, sure. We
It's
have a band that we play on the radio station that's a rockabilly band. Lara Hope
Very
and the
popular in Europe.
Yeah.
Oh,
Europe and
cool.
Middle East. If you're in Europe or in the Middle East, it's very commonplace. But here, it's like you can't find anything on it.
Well, someone
Correct.
just mentioned on the chat here, up on Facebook Live, country rap. Yeah, of course. There's a hell of a lot of genres now that are being mixed in fusion because they're trying to bring something new because the mainstream is just that. It's the mainstream. It's so overplayed and it's like, okay, well, is there anything different? You're hearing the same melodies, the same
Right.
beats, the same rhymes. Like, what else is there? And so a lot of people now are bringing out brand new genres, and that's why I gravitate towards the folk indie arena, because that's where it's real. That the artists behind it are bringing something real, rather than, uh, you know, who wants to do this and who wants to do that, and it's terrible. And how many times do I go? I mean, everyone can put their hands up and say, hey, you're going to get your music source from YouTube, because that's where a lot of people go now. And because of that, I don't know how many countless times I've gone into the comments just to see what people are saying about the songs that are relevant. And the comments are saying, well, how come this artist is so good, how come this artist is not recognized? It should
Right.
be way up there. But they're not. They're recognized. And I don't know what these music execs are doing, but they're horrible at their job.
They're afraid to take a chance.
Yeah.
And they don't make very much money at all. The artists, they screw them over.
Yeah. It's, you know what it is? It's back in the day, president of a record label would say to the A&R team, go out there and find me something new, something that we can, take a gamble on. If you think they're great, we think they're great. We think people will think they're great. We'll put them out there, and they take a chance on something that's new. Now they say, okay, well, this song is doing really well. Go find me a band that has the same exact sound as that. So it's kind of just homogenized all the music into one sound. Like country music, if you look on YouTube, you can do these. You look for engineer mashups, and they take like 7 country songs and they take pieces of them and put them all in a row, and you realize that they're all exactly the same song. Down to the guitar solo. And it's not all country music. It's just mainstream country music from today. But then you could find country music in the original independent scene, and it's like its own monster. Someone comes on, you know exactly who it is. It's that's the difference of going from the artist to the listener, instead of the artist, the engineer, the producer. Well, the engineer's got to be there, but the artist, the producer who wants to make it so that it'll be popular enough for the labels to want to put it out there. And all he does is make it sound like the last hot song that was out there. But he took all the love and the feeling.
Wow.
And the
I
other
have
thing is
another
too-
question about it. I have a few European artists that I like to listen to of that genre. Why does Facebook make it hard to search for people outside of your country if you have to if you intentionally search for a specific artist, they make it really difficult.
Well, a lot of I will tell you now, Christopher, a lot of these artists that are up in, doesn't matter whether you're mainstream or indie, prefer not to use Facebook. They prefer to stick their one platform over to YouTube or Spotify or any of the
Right.
other music platforms that are out there, because Facebook is just a social media. It's not. It's just like Twitter. You wouldn't go posting up your songs on Twitter. You'd post a link, but you wouldn't post your song on Twitter. It's the same goes with Facebook. The same goes with all the other places. That's why a lot of artists are now choosing platforms like iTunes, because you can't actively download. And the biggest issue with the industry is that it's free downloads, just taking songs, making them your own. And I mean, I don't know how many people have been caught from doing those mashups that you were just talking about, Jason. How they all get caught about using these same songs, doesn't matter what they are. They're using all these songs and then taking the royalty rights away from these artists that they should be earning, and making
Yep.
these new collaborations of already original songs and making it as their own. I mean, there are the whole industry needs a big shake up, and common people like you and me, Christopher and Amanda, and Marie, and all the listeners out there, we're taking those songs and we're making them playable and and just downloading them at free will, but we're not realizing that these artists put their time, their effort, and their creativity into every project that they do, and we're just people, general people, just like you and I, are stealing it all.
I don't do that anymore. I now pay for music services.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, even like with our radio station, it's free because we don't believe, like, for us, music, it should be, it's not like it can download it. We basically just play the music on the radio station, and then if somebody likes the music, they can just go to our website, and we have links to a lot of the artists that are on there, and they can buy it directly from them. But the idea is to be able to be an alternate to the mainstream music scene.
Yeah.
So, if you're not down with what the producers are doing, you're not down with that, and you want to hear music from actual musicians the way they wrote it, and that's kind of where we are. So it's you get more, we have more personal music, I guess, and more of a diversity in the music. You know what I
And
mean?
it's
Just
not
different
auto
style.
tuned.
Oh, that's why I follow Bopflix on YouTube, which is a major jazz and rockabilly YouTube provider, and it they may not main they don't mainly do music in the States because they can't penetrate it.
Right. Right.
And the big
Listen,
killer is
I have to jump, but it was really great talking to you guys,
no,
man. This
that's
is a
cool.
cool show.
Absolutely.
I want to listen to your
Yeah,
station.
we were actually getting ready to wrap it up anyway too. But thank you for coming on. If you can, please just let the viewers know where they can find you, how they can let's say they're interested in having you perform at one of their venues. If you can you know, give them details about that.
Yeah, sure. It's the email is thejasongisserband.com. So it's just the Jason, Jason. Gisser is Gisser, band.com. Actually, the website is thejasongisserband.com, and then the email is thejasongisserband@yahoo.com. So those, and then, I'm on Facebook just as Jason Gisser, and the radio station is called Soulmouth Radio, and we're an app on for Apple or for Android. So Play Store, or however you do those. Music, you can get my music anywhere, iTunes or any of the Amazon or anywhere that you can download it. Just look up Jason Gisser, and I'm the guy. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm adding you on Facebook.
Yeah.
If you hang with us a few seconds while we wrap it up, Jason, that would be great. I do have a question to ask you too.
Sure.
Okay, and so lastly, my daughter, that's why I looked a little distracted. My daughter came over here to show me something that she wanted to share with you. My daughter's name is Paige. From time to time, she will pop in on the show and things like that. So she brought me this interesting article that she was studying and reading, where there was a instrument found 60,000. It's 60,000 year old. It's a oh my God, I can't say it. Neanderthal made instrument. I couldn't say that word for some reason. But yeah, she said it was 60,000 years old, and it was found, and it's a bone instrument that they created to mimic a flute, or what we know today as a flute. And it was found in Slovenia in a cave. And she wanted me to tell you guys that music has been around longer than we think, because the Neanderthals were using it back then, and they created their instruments out of wood and bones from animals. So she wanted me to share
Wow.
that with you guys.
There you go.
I didn't know that tidbit either.
Yeah, she came. That's why I was off camera for a second. She wanted to share that with you guys, and to let you, to let all the viewers know, and to let us all know that 60,000 years ago, when Homo sapiens were developing, because she studies anthropology, that there was instruments. So see, guys, music has always been within us, even through the dawn of time. But with that being said, you are listening to Goddesses and Devils with your hosts, Katie Kamara and Amanda Mcmanus. We will be back on Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Katie, do you want to say anything before we head out? But I would like to wish you guys
that's
love and
all.
light, and I hope you guys have a great night.
For anybody that's wanting to follow up on any announcements that we have, you can either follow me, Katie Kamara, or Amanda Mcmanus up on Facebook or any other social media platform, or you can go over to the website at soma-fusion.com and the Global Enlightenment Radio Network.com for all other announcements and all of the other shows that we have on the network. But until then, you have a lovely weekend or a lovely Sunday evening and a great week ahead. Until then, we will see you next Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern on Goddesses and Devil on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network. Have a great night, guys.
Good night, guys.